Dean and Tyler Listle are registered investment advisor representatives. Investment advisory services offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, member SIPC. Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, and Secure Retirement Solutions, LLC are not affiliated companies.
It's time for Secure Retirement Solutions with your hosts, Dean and Tyler Listle, fully licensed retirement specialists from Secure Retirement Solutions in Green Bay. Now, here are your hosts, Dean and Tyler.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Tyler and I will discuss topics that affect your retirement, such as investments, income planning, Social Security, and much more. How are you this morning, Tyler?
I'm doing great, Dean. How about yourself?
Good, thank you. Today we're going to talk about, a topic that a lot of investment advisors don't spend enough time talking about when it comes to their clients, whether it be in retirement, pre-retirement, or even in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, because it will definitely affect you when you start to withdraw and set up your retirement plan. We're going to talk about key ways to reduce your taxes in retirement. And again, I said people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s can also participate here because we just had a situation where client, husband and wife, wanted to retire early. They had the funds to do it, but because all of their funds were in the traditional portion of their 401k, it really kept them from being able to bridge the gap between insurance and Medicare, because all of the income they would take from those 401ks, which would be rolled over into an IRA or kept with the 401ks, all of that money would show up as income when you're planning for health insurance. So even early on, taking advantage of the Roth portion of your 401k, if it's available, is a great thing to discuss with your financial advisor. If you're not getting consultation on, tax planning, you really need to shop around a little bit, because there are some pretty significant consequences to withdrawing incorrectly in retirement. We see it all the time. We'll see people that are paying significantly higher health insurance fees than they need to, premiums, I should say, because they didn't know that they could be withdrawing from a non-qualified account instead of their IRA, and they find out years later after paying thousands of dollars per month in health insurance premiums versus a couple $100s. So we're going to talk about some of those things. Some will be obvious to you and you've heard before, others won't be. But the first one we're going to talk about, as far as a key way to reduce taxes in retirement, is Roth conversions. Tyler and I talk about this an awful lot. We like to see people start looking at converting in their 50s. Many times people wait until they're retired to start converting to Roths, and there's a couple of pitfalls in doing that. First of all, a Roth has to be in place for 5 years before you get the no tax incentive. So it has to be in place. You can't retire tomorrow and think that you're going to put a Roth in place today and get tax-free dollars right away. And the other thing with Roth conversions is, while you're working and in your 50s, you're typically making more than you have in your career most times, and you're better prepared to pay the tax implication by converting at that stage of your life. So Tyler, what else about Roth conversion here makes it appealing to put in place to reduce taxes in retirement?
Yeah, Dean, so one of the major key ways to reduce taxes in retirement, as you had mentioned, are Roth conversions, and starting in your 50s or earlier would be the best time. But when it comes to a Roth conversion, that is taking any money that you have in pre-tax retirement accounts. So that would be your 401k, your traditional IRA, your 403b, different accounts like that, and then you convert it to a Roth account. So what you do is you pay the taxes now, and then when it goes into a Roth, anything in the Roth and then any of the growth that it makes over time is then going to be completely tax-free in the future. So the whole concept behind converting Roth accounts Roth conversions are converting pre-tax accounts when you're younger before retirement, paying the taxes now, and then letting it grow tax-free throughout the rest of your working years into retirement, so then you can utilize it without having to pay any taxes come retirement when you need it. And oftentimes, those people who have larger balances in their traditional IRAs or their 401ks, they're subject to something called an RMD, or required minimum distribution. And that's the amount that the IRS makes you take out. They mandate that you take it out at 72 on any pre-tax retirement account. Now, if you have a Roth account, you don't have to take it out from a Roth account. So that's why Roth accounts are so appealing. But the RMDs can represent a significant tax hit each year for those people that might not necessarily need all that money. So for example, let's say if someone has $500,000 in a 401k or an IRA, that amount would be subject at 72 to the required minimum distribution. And at 72, it starts right around 3.65% of the account value. So if I take 3.65% on 500,000, that's over $18,000 that you have to take out starting at 72, and that amount grows a little bit each and every year thereafter. So what happens though is when you take money from an IRA, that $18,000, you have to pay taxes on that. So one thing that people like to do beforehand is if they don't want to pay taxes on that full amount, they can convert it to a Roth before then, and then they're not required to take money out. And when they do take money out from a Roth account, it's completely tax-free. So by converting to a Roth, that allows you to lower your RMDs, and then lower RMDs can mean less overall taxable income, which could be lower taxes on your Social Security and your Medicare, and more deductions relating to your adjusted gross income. So by reducing tax, or by converting your pre-tax accounts to a Roth, they have somewhat of a trickle-down effect where it can affect everything from your overall taxes that you have to take in terms of your RMDs to even the taxes that you might pay on your Social Security benefits. So Roth conversions really have a nice trickle-down effect. We really encourage people to convert their pre-tax accounts to the Roth accounts, and it especially looks attractive right now because when you convert a pre-tax account to a Roth account, you're paying taxes right now, and right now tax rates are actually historically low compared to what they have been and what they probably will be in the future. They're probably going to go up. So you want to pay the taxes now at a lower tax bracket now, and then take money tax-free in the future when your tax bracket's going to be higher. So that's why it makes a lot of sense to do Roth conversions. For those folks who are just starting up or have the option to put money into a Roth 401k, then you should go there right away. That's a good way that you can reduce taxes as well, is by putting money into a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k right off the bat. That way you don't even have to worry about converting. But mainly for those who already have money in 401ks or traditional IRAs, Roth conversions are one of the major ways to reduce taxes in retirement.
Okay, good point, Tyler. Another way to reduce taxes in retirement, this is something that you're hearing more and more of. For those people who give money to charities, qualified charitable deductions, or QCDs, is something you're hearing more and more of. It gives you an opportunity to give a substantial amount or a small amount to charities that come directly from IRAs, 401ks, and so on, and bypasses the taxable event. So right now we're seeing more people all the time during our tax season. We have tax preparers here in the office, and we're seeing more and more qualified charitable deductions. It's something that, again, if you're retired and you give money, you should really look at from a standpoint of contributions and some tax relief.
Yeah, Dean, really good point there. When we talk about QCDs, again, qualified charitable deductions, those are for clients who have to be at least 70 and a half years old. So keep that in mind when you have an RMD. So you don't have to be 72. That's the age for RMDs. You have to be at least 70 and a half. You can take a QCD from a traditional IRA for up to $100,000. So many people, you're not going to come even close to that $100,000 threshold. But still, you can do that and contribute to a qualified charitable organization. So there's many charities that we have clients that they'll do that for, or even their church. You can do that for your church as well. So the big benefit of doing that is when you take money from an IRA, again up to $100,000, you can do that and you don't have to pay any taxes on that. Now, you don't get a deduction for doing that, but by contributing to a charity through an IRA, it's non-taxable. Whereas if you were to take this money from your IRA to live on for yourself, you would pay taxes on it. So by utilizing the QCD, you can take money out of an IRA, not pay taxes on it, as long as that money goes to a qualified charity. And when you go ahead, or one of the main ways to go ahead and do that we see people doing that with, is for those who might not have any children or grandchildren that they want to leave money for. Oftentimes, if they don't have any particular anyone that they want to leave money toward, usually then they will start by doing the QCD process earlier, as opposed to waiting until they pass away and just leave the charity on there as a beneficiary. They can start that process earlier and have more of it go to the charity tax-free by utilizing the QCDs. Now again, even though the Secure Act at the end of 2019, it raised the RMD age from 70 and a half years old to 72 right now in 2020, but you can still utilize the QCD at 70 and a half. Again, you don't have to be 72, you simply have to be 70 and a half, and you can take money which would otherwise be your RMD and then use that as a QCD as a tax-free way to contribute your IRA or 401k funds to a qualified charity and not have to pay any taxes. So this is one that's, we do see people doing it. However, it is pretty underutilized. But if you have a certain charity or church that you feel strongly about, you can take money out of your IRA and not have to pay any taxes up to $100,000 if you contribute it to that charity or church.
Okay, another way to reduce your taxes in retirement. Now, we're putting a little different spin on this one, and in order to reduce your taxes in retirement is actually paying off your mortgage. Now, we hear people all the time say that they want to carry a mortgage because they get some tax relief. You get a deduction. I mean, really, if you sit down with a calculator and take the fact that you're paying X amount of dollars in a mortgage, whether it be $500 or $2,500 per month in a mortgage, just so you can get some tax relief during the tax season, that's not a good decision. It's not a wise decision. But we've got a little bit different spin on it. And after spending years, talking to people about mortgages and seeing what they're paying and where they're getting the money from to pay off their mortgages in retirement. First of all, we'd love to see that you don't carry a mortgage in retirement, but that doesn't always happen. So if you're carrying a mortgage in retirement, what happens? Most people have to go and dip into money that becomes taxable once you pull it out. So Tyler, give an example of what we're starting to see more and more of and what we would like to get away from.
Yeah, Dean. So this is a big one, but as you mentioned, it's not. You don't think of it conventionally when you talk about reducing taxes, but in a way, paying off your mortgage can really reduce taxes in retirement because you save money on taxes by potentially reducing the amount that you're going to withdraw from your traditional IRAs or 401ks that would be subject to taxes. So we see people who now. We do have folks that do go into retirement and carry a mortgage and they can make it work, but oftentimes it's a burden on them. It's kind of a weight on their shoulders where ideally you want to get that paid off before retirement. But for those who do go into retirement while carrying a mortgage into retirement, they no longer are working. So now instead of relying on their income or their payroll to pay for the mortgage, they turn toward their investments. And they have to take money out of their IRA to pay down their mortgage. And when you take money out of your IRA, again, that's taxable. So it's going to increase your taxable income. It's going to increase your taxes by pulling money from your IRA to pay for your mortgage. So if you pay off your mortgage before retirement, then it will have double the benefit of, number one, it's going to reduce your expenses. So that's something that we talk about all the time, where going into retirement, you want to ideally eliminate any debt. You don't want to have any debt out there, so that way you can utilize your Social Security benefits, or if you have a pension, to basically cover your fixed expenses, and then utilize the money that you have in your Roth accounts or your 401k for different types of lifestyle expenses, different money for different hobbies, vacation, travel, whatever the case might be. So it reduces your expenses, and then it reduces your taxable income because, again, if you don't have a mortgage, you're not going to have to pull money from your 401k or your IRA to pay for that mortgage. So instead, you can leave that money in there. You can let it defer and grow and use it for vacation, travel, gifting, creating a legacy. You can use it for things that are much more meaningful than paying off your mortgage in retirement. So if you can pay for your mortgage before retirement, then you can utilize those funds for many different things. And by doing so, by not having to pull money out of your IRA to pay for your mortgage, you're reducing your taxes because, again, any money that you take from your IRA or your 401k, you're taxed on that money when you take the money out. So if you don't have to pull it out for a mortgage, if you get that paid off beforehand, that leads to you reducing your taxes in retirement.
Okay, before we continue, we're going to take a quick break.
You're listening to Dean and Tyler Listle, investment advisors with Secure Retirement Solutions, located on Packerland Drive in Green Bay. For a complimentary review of your current investments, or if you have questions, please call them at 920-347-9888 or go to their website at srsplans.com.
Okay, now the next one we're going to talk about as far as reducing your taxes in retirement actually has to deal with those people who decide to work later in life. Again, we're seeing a lot more people working a little bit later. However, it's a trend that we do like, considering they're choosing to work later in life as opposed to having to work later in life. Tyler and I have a saying here in the office, if you retire and have to go back to work because the finances don't make ends meet, that is probably poor planning. If you decide to go back to work after retiring from your career job because you choose to, good for you. I mean, that's a great situation. But we do see a lot of people liking to take on a part-time job after retirement to stay busy, in addition to maybe some of their own hobbies or contributing to a charity and spending time there. But the one we're going to talk about next is IRA contributions past 70 and a half. A lot of this has to do with the new CARES Act that was put in place at the beginning of this year, 2020, and some of the advantages that were given to people. And this is one that really helps your tax situation. So Tyler, let's go through the scenario of IRA contributions beyond 70 and a half.
Yeah, Dean, this is another one that can reduce taxes in retirement, where the Secure Act, it removed the maximum age, which was 70 and a half, for contributing to a traditional IRA. So in the past, if you have earned income, you can contribute to an IRA. However, that used to be capped at the age of 70 and a half. So when you turned 70 and a half years old, even if you had earned income, you could no longer contribute to a traditional IRA. Well, the Secure Act that was put in place in late 2019 to begin in 2020, it now allows you to work past 70 and a half and continue to contribute to an IRA past 70 and a half. Now, that is really good for not only reducing taxes, but also for those who might not have saved enough early on and they're still in good health and still want to work. It gives you the option to contribute even more money to play catch up later on in life, whereas in the past you weren't able to do that. So it helps you contribute, but then it also helps you with taxes, because for those who have earned income and who are working after 70 and a half years old, you can make pre-tax contributions to a traditional IRA account. And what this does is this serves to reduce your taxable income for that year, and it adds additional tax-deferred savings to your account. So any contribution into a traditional IRA, you can take that as a deduction. It reduces your taxable income for whatever year that you're working and contributing to your IRA. And again, we recommend that people contribute 15% or try and work your way up to 15% of your income into retirement accounts. However, not everyone is able to do that early on. But if you're able to do that early on, you want to contribute up to the match in your 401k, and then outside of that into different Roth accounts. But if you are one of those who is playing catch up and you're working later, you're working after 70 and a half to try and catch up and retire, then this really allows a good opportunity for you to put money away to not only save for retirement, but again, get a nice tax deduction when you do put money away. So keep that in mind for anyone out there who does plan to work past the age of 70 and a half. In the past, you could not contribute to an IRA. Now you can, as long as you have earned income. And when you contribute to an IRA, you can also get a nice deduction for doing that as well.
Okay, good points, Tyler. This is one that we don't hear a lot of, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but you can defer your RMDs, your required minimum distributions, while working. Okay, so again, this is one that a lot of people were not aware of. We can explain it a little bit more, but this is one that will help your tax situation in retirement. So Tyler, let's talk a little bit about deferring RMDs while working.
Yeah, Dean, when it comes to deferring RMDs while working, this is another one where you can defer the RMD from your current employer's 401k as long as you don't own 5% or more of the company, and your employer also must opt for this deferral. But there's plenty of employers out there who, for those people who are working past the age of 72, and again, it's not super common, but it's becoming more and more common as people are living longer, they've got longevity on their side, they're able to they're able to not take an RMD if they continue to work. So, which makes perfect sense. You don't want to take, if you're working, that means you're still saving for retirement. You don't want to take money out in the form of an RMD if you're still putting money away, because it's counterintuitive. So make sure that you're able to, through your employer, defer your RMDs. What you can do is, the other thing is, if your 401k plan allows for it, you can potentially do a reverse rollover of an IRA or an old 401k back into the plan that was contributed on a pre-tax basis, and those funds won't be subject to an RMD either. So that's something that not too many people know of, where if you do have an old 401k and you roll it back into your 401k that you're working with, now you don't have to take an RMD from those either. So keep in mind that only applies to your current 401k, where if you have a current 401k and you're over 72 years old and you're still working, you can defer your RMD, meaning you don't have to take it from that current 401k. But if you have additional IRAs out there, you still would have to take it from those other accounts. So keep that in mind. Just because you're working over 72 and your employer allows you to defer your RMDs, that doesn't mean that you don't have to take it from an IRA, an individual retirement account that's still out there. So that's part of the reason why when people do retire, we do recommend consolidating accounts, rolling those over into one, so that way you don't have all these different accounts lingering out there that you have to try and keep track of the RMDs for. But still, deferring RMDs while working within your current 401k, you definitely want to make sure to see if you can defer those. It doesn't make sense to take those if you're still working. But if you do have an IRA, you are going to want to take your RMD from that IRA. But by deferring the RMDs while working, that allows you to not have to take that money out, which means your taxes is going to be lower. It lowers your overall taxable income. So that's one that not too many people think of, but similar to the last one, where if you're working past 72 years old, you want to check with your employer and see if you do have the option to defer your RMDs and not take those.
Okay, good points, Tyler. So we talked today about 5 key ways to reduce taxes in retirement. Just a quick summary again. The most obvious one is Roth conversions. And as Tyler and I both said, we'd love to see Roth conversions happen in your 50s or even earlier. Why? Because you're prepared to pay the tax implication through the conversion process because you're working, and typically you're making the most that you've ever made in your career during that time frame. Don't really like to see a whole lot of conversions happen after retirement, though it can still happen and be beneficial. So Roth conversions would be number one. Number two way that we were talking about to reduce taxes in retirement would be qualified charitable deductions. Great way to contribute to charities and not get hit with taxes in the process. Seeing more and more of that happening right around tax time each and every year. So if you have any interest in that, let us know. We can help you out on that. The third one is paying off a mortgage. And Tyler and I said we have a different spin on this. A lot of people say, well, their tax preparer said they should keep a mortgage because they get a tax deduction. But again, really is the small tax deduction you get by taking money out of your IRA, which you're being taxed on, to pay a mortgage. Are you really defeating the purpose? You're probably paying substantially more in taxes by withdrawing from IRAs to pay your tax or your mortgage than you are in saving taxes by carrying a mortgage. So again, we have a little different spin on that, but we have seen it through the years many, many times. The next one is IRA contributions beyond 70 and a half. That is a situation where, again, due to the CARES Act, you can now contribute while you're still working and have earned income, whether it's a part-time job or full-time job. After 70 and a half, used to be you couldn't anymore. And then the last one we referred to is deferring RMDs while working.
Yeah, Dean, really good points there. Just the last thing that I want to make is that we are not CPAs. However, we do work in conjunction with CPAs and tax advisors. So you want to talk to a tax advisor about your own unique and personal situation. But we do factor in taxes all the time when we talk about our clients' financial and retirement plans. So if you want more information about different ways that you can reduce taxes in retirement, we've also got a few more in addition to the ones that we talked to today. Check out our website, srsplans.com, or give us a call, 920-347-9888. But otherwise, I think that's all the time that we have for today. So we'll see you later and hope that you join us next week.
See you later.
You've been listening to Secure Retirement Solutions with your hosts, Dean and Tyler Listle, fully licensed retirement specialists from Secure Retirement Solutions in Green Bay. To get more information from Dean and Tyler, contact them on Packerland Drive in Green Bay. Call 920-347-9888 or visit them at srsplans.com. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC. Member SIPC. Brokers International Financial Services is not an affiliated company.